12 o'clock, we ready?
Yep.
Let's do
Okay.
this.
Good evening, or I'm sorry, good afternoon. Welcome to our special city council meeting today, Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. Let's please start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom, Modrick, Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong,
Here.
Lewis, Lehman, Drury, Evans, Drew. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. And now is the time for the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Thank you. And now's the time for general public comment. Do we have any public comment speakers? Anybody in the audience that cares to speak on the items on the agenda? Okay, exactly. All right. And public comment is now closed. We're here today to address on the non-consent item. We have number 1, approve audit report of the City of Rapid City, the 2018 financial and compliance report. Mr. Lewis.
You want to read in the record first?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, and if I could hold the floor.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Lewis, second by Mrs. Drury. Please continue.
Could I address the finance officer, if I could, please?
Absolutely.
Ms. Sumption, could you please explain to us why we're doing this at a special council meeting today?
Sure. We are required for our bonding requirements as well as grant requirements from the federal government to have this approved by September 30th of each year following the audit year. At the time, it was supposed to come to the council meeting on September 16th. However, we received word from our auditors that one of the reviewing partners had a family emergency and was not able to review it in a timely manner to be able to be attached to the agenda prior to the meeting. The information we received was that we were going to get the information late on the 16th, and to me that was not sufficient for transparency purposes, for review purposes. And so we asked that it be moved to a special council meeting.
And just as a follow-up, I'm sure you might get this question in case you do, maybe cut off the pass. Is there anything in the audience that gives you any concern that we need to be addressing immediately, or does it seem like it's pretty much the same stuff that comes up every year?
There were 2 new comments this year. We were already looking at, they both had to do with grants, but we're already looking at how to get that fixed. So we continue to improve upon our processes, and we're working towards getting those eliminated from the report altogether. But yeah, there's some that are repeat, and we've made baby steps in each of the areas. The one with the CDs that are brokered through a money manager, if you noticed our response, we do not agree that they're not appropriate investments for a city because they are FDIC insured. And so our money is still protected. However, until we can get some legislation taken care of, we are going to divest of those as they mature. But we actually receive a better interest rate on those right now than any of our investments, so that's why we do not want to just get rid of them in one lump. So,
Thank you, ma'am. I have no more further questions.
Thank you for your input, Mrs. Sumption. Mrs. Drew, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know who to direct this question to. Maybe it's Heidi. But I would like to know if someone can tell me what's the difference between a regular council meeting and a special council meeting. What makes this special? Is that, can you take that one, Polly?
yes,
Thank you.
I'll take it. Heidi's giving me a look.
I know you were, and that's fine. I
So-
deserve it.
The council's regularly scheduled meetings are set by ordinance, and in the ordinance it states that they are the first and third Mondays of every month. Then it also gives ways in which you can call a special meeting to take care of city business outside the normal schedule. Those would be special meetings. We've done them in the past for budget hearings. That's our typical one that we see. We do one at the end of the year for any last minute year-end business that we need to take care of. We've already scheduled that with you guys for December. So it's not uncommon to hold special meetings. It's just that they require special notice because it's not already outlined in the ordinance.
And I would say it's probably not rare to have a few missing council people at the special meetings because they're not on the schedule. Sometimes a great deal of time in advance. They're not scheduled months in advance because they're held for a special purpose.
Correct, and we understand that. We try to poll the council to see who can be available when to get the most attendance as possible and make sure that we have a quorum before we meet.
And I want you guys to know I appreciate that. I know it's not always comfortable to make those phone calls, but they are required, and thank you for just getting hold of us whenever there is a special meeting. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Drew. Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And as you know, my schedule changed, so I am able to be here today. So I got through most of this read that was presented to us. But if I can ask the finance officer a couple of questions.
Please go ahead.
Pauline, is there an executive summary that's available? I apologize if I haven't been able to find it yet, but is there an executive summary that addresses both of these documents?
The executive summary is what was the governance letter that was sent out to the elected officials prior. Otherwise, it is all within the body of the audit that is attached to the agenda.
Thank you. And then is the findings, the audit findings, is that addressed within that same letter then as well?
Yes, they mentioned those towards the end of the letter, as well as give exhibits as to what audit adjustments we did make versus what audit adjustments that we passed on.
Thank you. That addresses my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Last but not least, Mrs. Drury, you have the floor.
Just one more question, Pauline. I know one of the things that I came to mind when I was reading through here was I always called it separation of duties, where you can't have the same person in charge of the checks that can sign the checks and those types of things. But your office is in the process, or has been in the process, of working those glitches out, correct?
Correct. In fact, our most recent, after this audit, we thought that we had everything taken care of because we created a new accounts payable coordinator position that would have been responsible for printing the checks and issuing the checks afterwards. So that way the assistant finance officer was not part of that process. There was still concerns this time that she still had access to the key for the printer, for the check printer. And so we are in the process of changing who has basically ownership of the key that she used to have. However, we do have processes in place as far as people have to sign out that signature key, so that way they have to tell us why they're signing it out. Payroll has to come get it for the payroll checks, accounts payable. The coordinator comes and gets that as well. In this case, where the assistant finance officer can also input information for payment, she can also print the checks. This would give us one more step of control, so that way we would have to know when she's printing the checks herself and have it documented.
Thank you for taking those additional steps. We appreciate it. I yield.
We have a motion on the floor, up for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Great discussion. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lewis and second by Mrs. Drury? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.